the good thing.
Yeah.
It's
All
not
right.
live.
Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to another episode of No Conditions. I am here on a wonderful day with a wonderful guest, Mr. Chris Meyer. Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
This is awesome.
This is going to be an interesting hour, to say the least. Never done anything like this in my life, and don't know if I'll do anything like this afterward.
Hey, you never know. You might be a regular. I might get phone calls saying, hey, get that guy back in that seat now.
Yeah, that or I'll start getting obscene phone calls.
You wish.
Yeah.
All right. So for people that don't know, that are just listening, of course, there's only audio, no video. Tell everybody about yourself.
Well, I was born and raised in Glenn County.
Mm-hmm.
Lived here in Orland, Hamilton City, Ord Bend, and till I was probably about 6th grade.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was, as Mom tells the story, when her and my dad separated or got divorced, my dad would pick me up on a Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And bring me back on Sunday, and I'd bawl my eyes out till Wednesday. And she got one good day, which was Thursday, and then Dad would pick me up on Friday again, and it'd start all over.
Oh, shit.
So, yeah, I was a daddy's boy,
Mm-hmm.
and he kind of moved around the county periodically, never owned a house, always rented.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got to know a few people from Orland, we moved over here. I think I was in the 5th or 6th grade.
Mm-hmm.
And we moved out west of town. And some of the people that you probably went to school with, I lived next door to.
Uh-huh.
They introduced me to some people in town that I've known all my life. I like Orland.
Mm-hmm.
I like all these quaint little towns, keep me out of the big city is
Not your gig, huh?
not my gig. Can't stand going to Chico. And then I think I was in the 6th grade, and Dad got an offer from my uncle, who sold real estate, to remodel houses up in Paradise. And so he packed up what we owned, which was very little,
Mm-hmm.
and we moved to Paradise.
Excellent.
And what he failed to do was mention it to my mother.
So she had no idea?
She had no idea that we were no longer living in Orland, and I was no longer going to school in Hamilton City.
Oh, crap.
Yeah.
Oh, crap.
Yeah. And the way she found out was the school district up in Paradise contacted the elementary school wanting my records.
Oh, shit.
And so she started making phone calls, and I don't know what the conversation was like between the two of them when it happened, but as they say, the shit probably hit the fan.
That was an awkward phone call, I guarantee you.
Yeah, for sure. And I wasn't a fan of the move. I had all my friends down here.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't know anybody up there. Even though I was in 6th grade for the first 2 or 3 weeks, every morning when I woke up to go to school, I begged and pleaded and cried, "Don't make me go." But I tend to make friends pretty quickly. I'm pretty easygoing.
You are.
So, made some friends, made some enemies, with the last name Meyer.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there was a little peckerhead that will remain anonymous.
Mm-hmm.
They used to like to sing, "I wish I was an Oscar Mayer wiener."
Aw,
Yeah,
bastards.
yeah. Well, he got his comeuppance.
Did you? Did you kick
Yeah,
his ass?
yeah.
Oh, good.
So, um, and then after that, we became friends. You
That
know,
always happens. I've
it,
heard that. That always happens. It
it,
never happened with me. Girls are different. Boys, they can shake hands at the end of the day and be
and
done. Girls, we'll put a hex on you. We'll tell everybody that you're screwing everybody in town. We'll never speak to you again. We'll key your car. That's how we operate.
the rumors get to
Yeah.
flying. Yeah, yeah.
That girl's a doorknob. Everyone gets a turn. That kind of thing. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah, we're vicious. You don't want to mess with us.
Well, hey, the nastier the rumors, the more I like them.
Exactly. So tell everybody what makes you unique. That makes you the person that you are.
Oh wow, that's a good question. I don't know. I guess the most unique thing about me is instead of walking around on two legs, I get around on four wheels. Uh, I'm in a wheelchair. I broke my neck in 1984, the day after my dad's birthday. We were going to work. Me and a buddy were working for a farmer out in Ord Bend, and my truck happened to be broke down. Was tearing the engine apart, and his cousin was up visiting, and we lived in a little trailer park out in Ord Bend, and we wanted to go fishing. But we had to go to work to get, change water on the crops and whatnot. So we left early in the morning, and we'd been up late that night playing cards, playing poker, and who knows doing what else. Probably had a few too many beers. And we got over by where the fields were, and Andy, my best friend's cousin, was driving. Don't want to go into really any particular real details,
That's fine.
but the truck ended up rolling, and I was sitting. It was a little Mazda pickup, and I was sitting on someone's lap, and that side of the roof crushed in, and everybody got out except for Chris, and they were like, "Hey, come on, get out," and I was like, "I can't move," and panic hit immediately, and I started screaming. I started screaming the word that my mother informed me that I couldn't use.
No F bombs.
No F-bombs. So telling them to get me out of the truck. And my best friend, he had been going to school wanting to be a firefighter. He knew not to move me, that it could do more damage. But he later on told me that it was just tearing him apart to stand out there and listen to me scream and beg for him to take me out of that truck. And one of the guys took off down the road to go to a house to call 911, and he finally said he couldn't stand it anymore. So I think they took some shirts or something and wrapped them around my neck to secure it so it wouldn't move. And then slowly, I don't remember this part, got me out of the truck Um, and the next thing that I knew, uh, I think it was a highway patrol officer, was asking me questions. Um, Most of them I don't recall. Um, the one that the one that I do remember was, um, and I know we're not supposed to use names, but growing up, this particular best friend, we always called him Richie. And as we all get older and uh, become men and women, uh, he didn't think that the word Richie fit him anymore. That was a boy's name, and he was a man now. So he had told me before, uh, don't call me Richie anymore. You call me Richard, Andy, or Dick. And I said, fine, Dick. And so, um, yeah, the CHP officer was standing over me asking me questions, and Rich was there, and he asked if I knew who he was. And I said, yeah, that's Dick. And after that, I don't recall the ambulance getting there. Um, I guess, um, after they loaded me up and hauled me over to Inlow, um, Mom was a secretary at the high school and had been for quite a few years. And at the time, across the street from the high school, they had a cafe, and all the regulars met there every morning, like probably a lot of people do in small towns.
Mm-hmm.
Catch up on the gossip or spread gossip, whatever comes to mind. And the ambulance went flying by, and I don't know um, how she found out if somebody. I mean, back in the day, there were no cell phones. Um, but somehow she found out that I was in the back of it. So over to Inlow, she headed. Um, I don't remember a whole lot for quite a while. I do know that they had to do surgery on my neck twice. Um, and before they performed even the first surgery to stabilize my neck, um, I guess I still had some movement in my hands and feet. Um, and then after the surgery was done, uh, that was no longer the case. Uh, for those of you who aren't familiar with spinal cord injury, I am a C4-5 quadriplegic, which means I broke the uh, C4-5 vertebrae in my neck. I am paralyzed basically from the chest down. So about my nipple area on down, I have no feeling, no sensation. From there up, especially from the neck up, the sensation that I do have is heightened. It's, spidey senses.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, any nibbles on the neck or anything like that, you know,
Which sometimes is not a bad thing.
no,
No, not a bad thing at all.
no.
No, no.
Even getting, you know, bites sometimes works
It works wonders, huh?
Works wonders. Yeah.
What was your hobbies before? I mean, were you active before the
Oh,
accident?
yeah.
Did you hunt? Did you fish? Did you?
I hunted, fished. Uh, I played baseball. Played all the sports: baseball, football. But I was mostly baseball.
Mm-hmm.
I pitched and played center field. Uh, that's always a ongoing thing between me and my buddy Rich. Is who was the better ball player at the time, and
So you still speak to? Do you still speak to the ones that you were in the accident with?
yeah.
Is he still your best friend?
Oh yeah,
Is
always will be. He's more like a brother than you know than a best friend. Yeah, we I don't we'll be best friends until whichever one of us takes our last breath.
he? Mm-hmm.
And
Did he stay with you during the whole course of it? I mean, did he stay by your side?
yeah, um, the only thing that uh, separated us for a while was he ended up going down to the Bay Area to do some schooling.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, whenever he was back, no, we were thick as thieves, and uh, I bought. Well, actually, we bought a boat together, and did a lot of fishing on the river
After the accident.
after the accident. But that particular boat, um, uh, it was kind of difficult to get me in and out of
Mm-hmm.
because they'd have to lift me up out of my chair, and then I had a secondary chair that they would stick me in the boat, and yeah, that was kind of a pain in the ass. Uh, so at some point, um, I got him and I talked, and uh, um, we sold that. Well, actually, I traded that boat in for a boat. We went to a lot of um, sporting and hunting and fishing
Mm-hmm.
expedition things like they used to have up in Anderson and Sacramento and whatnot. And of course, we'd go up there and get a few beers in us and always come home with something we didn't need,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's fishing poles or a gun or, well, this particular time I came home with a boat, or at least a contract for a boat. Um, but it was pretty bitching because the whole front end of it folded down, um, just like the boats back in the D-Day,
Mm-hmm.
World War II. Um, and so I could stay in my chair. They'd launch the boat, drop the front end down, and then wheel me right in it. And once I got that, um, his brother and I and him, uh, and then whatever other friends wanted to tag along and buy some beer, we were on the river probably 3 or 4 days a week. Uh, we used to catch so much salmon, um, that yeah, to this day, uh, fish is the last thing I want to see on my menu. So
You're not interested.
no, no.
Now,
And
how old were you whenever the accident happened?
I was 18
18.
when the accident happened. Yep. Just uh, I'd been sowing my wild oats for a while,
Mm-hmm.
um, but I wasn't quite done
Mm-hmm.
when it happened, and it didn't really slow me down as far as uh, going to concerts or going out and meeting people. Um, back in the day, there was a bar in Chico called Jolly Fox.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of old timers will probably remember that. Uh, and we used to go there and uh, meet some gals and dance and have some beer. And they had poker games in the back room. So if we wanted to do that, we'd play poker. Um, more than one occasion. Uh, Me and Rich's brother, uh, who I'm very close with, uh, if we closed down the bar, we'd go over to Denny's and have a little bite to eat, and then take off for Reno. And uh, we'd, you know, hit Reno about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, and gamble for half the day, and then jump in the van and drive back home. Now,
Was your mother terrified the whole time?
yeah, there. Thinking back on it,
Mm-hmm.
when the phone rings at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm going, "Hey, mom,
I'm shit faced and I'm going to Reno.
yeah, guess where I'm at?" You know, that probably wasn't the brightest
Mm-mm.
of things to do, but yeah, we did that on quite a few occasions.
Wow.
It was a lot of fun. We even every once in a while we'd get somebody from Denny's that we didn't even know to say, yeah, I'll go over with you guys.
You were making friends.
We were making friends.
I think that's
So,
awesome. So it really hasn't. I mean, I don't know. I had a client one time tell me she had polio, and she was in a wheelchair, and she was very active, and it was like overnight, and she always said it was kind of like being in an accident. She goes, it was like my spinal cord was just cut. She says I went from being completely active, doing everything that I wanted, to the following day, everything just ended. And I said, so what are your thoughts on that? I'm really curious. And she says, my dad explained it to me. It was no different than a paper napkin and a cloth napkin. They both work the same. You just got to learn how to fold them differently. That's all that it is. She says, and when he explained that to me, it was true. There's a lot of things that I can't do, but a lot of the things, why the hell would I want to do it anyway? So,
yeah, exactly. And there were still there were things that I wanted to do that I couldn't. That I I don't know if this is the right word, vicariously lived through my friends. I had no problems, watching them doing, wishing I could do it, but getting just as much joy out of watching them do it. And it didn't stop me from hunting. My dad and a couple of his friends built a custom tripod for me to go that mounted on my manual chair. So all they had to do was find a spot to stick me and wait for whatever game we were hunting.
were you successful?
I never was able to kill a deer, a buck, after I got in my chair. I give, he was friends with my dad, and Tom, none of these people are going to mind if I use their name. He still comes over and picks me up, and we go to lunch. He was from Paradise, him and his wife and kids. So Tom and his son, who's got the same name as me. Uh, we we all were in the same hunting camp together, and I give Tom a bad time because they were supposed to be making a drive. They put me on top of this hill, and they were supposed to make this drive down through this gully to try to scare out any bucks to me. And shortly after they started making their walk, I heard this boom, and it was Tommy, and he killed this nice 4-point. And I told him, I thought you're supposed to be driving these. Oh, he says, he was running my direction, but he says, I just had this feeling he was going to make a right turn, and you weren't going to be able to see him, so I had to take him out for you. Yeah, thanks, Tom.
That's what they all say.
That's what they all say. So, yeah. We had some great times in hunting camp. They designed, we used to go what's back in the rocks. It's up by Paynes Creek.
Mm-hmm.
And there wasn't, when it was 4-wheel drive way back in there, but there wasn't anywhere that they could really set me up and hunt. So they all sacrificed a place that they had hunted for 15, 20 years to go and find another place that was suitable for me.
That way you could go.
That way I could go. And they, I hate the cold, but my dad had a Datsun pickup and with a lumber rack, and they set it up where they tarped it over, and then they put plywood in the back of the truck with a mattress on it and a sawhorse. And so in the mornings and the evenings, when time to go to bed, they'd pull that mattress out and the plywood and set it on the sawhorse. And whether they were putting me to bed wasn't bad, because usually we were all half shit-faced.
Mm-hmm.
And didn't care whether it was raining or, blistering cold, whatever. But in the mornings, and up there at Paynes Creek, if anybody's ever been up there or hunted up, the wind blows all the time. Mm-hmm. And at 5:30 in the morning, it's colder than a witch's tit.
Mm-hmm.
And, laying there with just your chonies on,
Mm-hmm.
while we get in a little range of motion on my legs. Range of motion is just basically somebody grabbing a hold of one of my legs, moving it around to stretch it out, loosen up the muscles,
Get the blood flowing.
Which is when it's 45 degrees and the wind chills.
The blood's flowing a little slow.
To say, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, did that way. That went on for probably about 5 or 6 years before somebody finally said, hey, doesn't your aunt, my aunt who lived up in Cottonwood, have a trailer? Oh, yeah. Well, why don't we see if we can use the trailer? And so, of course, she let us use it.
Uh-huh.
But to get in and out of the trailer, they transferred me over to a kitchen chair, strapped me in the kitchen chair, and then someone would get behind and one in front, and then haul me up into the trailer, and then stick me in bed. But I'll tell you, it was a lot better sleeping in there than...
It was a hell of a lot more comfortable.
Yes. And
Now, were you ever afraid of like? Are you ever worried about falling, or is that like one of your fears? Were you ever nervous up there thinking, or
no, never really uh, crossed my mind about falling. I've fallen out of my chair.
you've taken spills?
Oh, yeah, on more than one occasion. Um, One time, my dad had a trailer up there in Paradise, and with a ramp, obviously, and we had gotten back from Paynes Creek, and I don't remember. It was me and a buddy were at the house, and everything was getting unloaded, and I don't know why we were going back outside, but uh, I didn't have the chair I have now. I can manually push
Mm-hmm.
very easily by myself. Back in the day, I couldn't push as well, um, and so my buddy uh, grabbed a hold of the push bars and back, and we proceeded outside at not what one would call a walking pace, but more like a brisk
Uh-huh.
run. And he turned the corner to go down the ramp and caught one of my
Oh
wheels
shit!
on a brace, and the chair stopped, and Chris didn't. And
You
I,
were airborne.
I was airborne. I went face first down the ramp and took skin off my bridge of my nose, and of course we were too stupid and probably too drunk to care, and so we laughed about that and
Mm-hmm.
uh, stuck get a couple guys to stick me back in the chair. Um, Another time, me and some friends were over in Chico, right across the street from the baseball field there at Chico State,
Mm-hmm.
uh, visiting some girls in an apartment complex, and had run out of beer. And um, myself and another guy um, volunteered to go over to Safeway and get another 12 pack. Why I was volunteered to go, I'm not sure. I guess maybe to stick it on my lap. Uh, I was going to be the grocery cart.
Uh-huh.
And on the way there, my buddy they got the bike lanes. And so he's kind of jogging along with me. And then he starts going a little faster. And they've got the cutouts in the curb, so you can go up on the curb.
Mm-hmm.
And he tried to take that going just a little too fast. And the chair tipped sideways. And I went out of the chair. And that took some skin, some hide off the side of my face and whatnot. But the worst part was, well, looking back on it, it's funny now. I'm laying, my chair's upside down. I'm laying in the bike lane, and my buddy is sitting on the curb crying.
Mm-hmm.
I hurt my friend. I hurt my best buddy Chris. And no, this wasn't Rich. It was another friend of ours. I finally had to get two guys come over on their bikes and inquired as to whether or not I was okay. I said, yeah, I was fine, but obviously the blubbering idiot sitting over on the curb wasn't going to be able to get me back up in my chair. So could you guys upright my chair and stick me in it? Which they were kind enough to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I got Mr. Speed Demon straightened out, uh, we made our way into Safeway, which people in Safeway probably thought we were nuts because I had blood streaming down the side of my head and whatnot.
They're like, oh shit, what did these guys do?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we proceeded to purchase what we went over there to get and made our way back to the apartment complex a lot slower this time.
Uh-huh. I was gonna
Uh,
say.
and yeah, when we went through the door, everybody looked at me and thought, we'd gotten mugged or something. uh, one of my eyes were starting to swell shut.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a pretty picture.
Wow.
Um,
So I think that also too. I think it's a huge thing is staying basically the same person that you were. I mean, that's a testament to is if you're still friends with the people that you got in an accident with and they're still talking to you and you're still best friends, that means that, I'm sure that we've talked about it in the past, is everyone has those days. Everyone has those days where shit is just not working out and it's a freaking pain in the ass. But I know you have down days, but the days that you're up. I mean, you still do what you want to do. There's not really a whole lot that you think, piss on it, I'm not going to do that, or I'm not going to do that. I like to see that in you.
right. I haven't, there's definitely days where, I put a smile on my face. Somebody asked me, "How are you today?"
Mm-hmm.
And, I would love to really tell them, what I feel, how I feel, whatnot. But once again, I wasn't raised that way.
Mm-mm.
And so I put a smile on my face and tell them everything's peachy keen.
Mm-hmm.
And, keep going on with life. There's always someone out there that's a little worse off than what you are.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I've been very blessed to have the family and the friends that I do have, because there's a lot of guys that I've met over the years. I shouldn't say a lot, but there's a handful of guys that I've met over the years that are in chairs that after they got hurt, their family basically abandoned them. Their friends disappeared. Now, I lost friends. There were friends that quit coming around because they didn't know how to act around me. They didn't know what to say. I'm like, what the hell? There's nothing different about me. It's just I'm sitting in a chair and I can't do some of the physical things that I used to do, but my mind still works. My I'm still able to, for the most part, form complete sentences.
Mm-hmm.
Not always, but you know. So, but they sadly didn't have really anyone. A gentleman that I met when I was in rehab down Santa Clara. I spent about 2.5 months after my accident in Chico Hospital. And then when it got to the point where I was ready to do rehab, they shipped me down to the Bay Area. And this boy did not like that. No.
Really?
too many kooks down there, and this was back in '84. But no, I didn't want to be away from home.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I went. I had what was called a halo on, which is a plastic vest, and it had 4 bars that go up, and then this metal ring that goes around your head, and they put screws into your skull, which is probably one of the most excruciating things that I ever felt at that up until that time. Anyhow, to keep your neck still. So when I first got down there and got in my room, they have 4 beds to a room, and I had 2 roommates, and they immediately proceeded to start in with the bird calls and whistles, teasing me because I had the halo on like I was in a bird cage.
Mm-hmm.
So that was cool. I was fine with that. Give a little, take a little.
Mm-hmm.
So spent probably month and a half, 2 months down there. Um, my dad and a friend of mine, Tim, would come down every weekend, and this same Datsun that I talked about sleeping in the back of during hunting trips, well, he had a little camper that he put on it, and they slept in the back of the camper out in the parking lot whenever they came down, until they were woken one morning about 3 o'clock in the morning, all these flashing lights, and they peeked out the window, and here's cops surrounding this car that's not too far from them, and they've got their guns drawn, and if the lead would have started flying, they were going to be right in the middle of it. So
They're like, screw this city shit, I'm out of here.
yeah. So once again, a friend decided just to use our trailer.
Mm-hmm.
And so they moved the trailer down there, and they had some places out back behind the hospital where they could park it. And so on the weekends when they would come down, we'd always go in the back and have a barbecue or something like that. And I would sneak a beer or two once in a while, and I had to suck everything through a straw because I had the halo on, and that would get to you pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
And down there they had me in a fully electric chair, which I hated, but it was a necessity for me to get around.
And how come you don't have an electric chair? Are they a pain in the ass, or is it because they're too heavy, or are they...
It's gonna sound weird, but I know I'm a quadriplegic, but I always wanted to be a paraplegic.
Really?
You know what I mean? A paraplegic, most of them have use of their fingers. They can transfer themselves. Most of them push a manual chair unless they wear their shoulders out so bad that then they've got to go to an electric. But and on top of that, if I'd had, and I had some over the years as like a backup chair, but running around with the guys that I run around with and doing the things that we did, if I was in a fully electric chair, I would have never been able to do them. Um, we went hunting places that uh, uh, they literally had to drag me and my manual chair through the mud
Mm-hmm.
uh, to get me to the spot to go hunting. Fully electric chair would have never got there. In fact, I tested that theory out uh, down at the rehab hospital because where the trailer was parked out back, they had a plowed field, and it had recently rained. And after a beer or two, I decided to see how good of four-wheel driving the electric chair would do, even though it was just rear-wheel drive.
Mm-hmm.
And so I turned it on and headed out through the plowed up field. And I made it out there probably about 20, 25 yards before I had it sunk all the way past the, you know, uh, front tires, and the back tires were buried about halfway deep. And it took my dad and Tim, they had to get some shovels and shovel around me to, uh, and then make a pathway to get me out of there. And it took them probably a good hour's worth of work.
They hated you, huh?
Yeah, they weren't happy with me. And then, of course, the chair had to be cleaned up before I could go back into the hospital. So, yeah, the dad put the kibosh on that. It says, no more of that shit, son.
Mm-hmm. You're done.
Yeah, your pilot license has been revoked.
Now you live with your mom, and your mom helps you, and she's pretty much an angel, and she
She's my rock.
she is. She definitely. She's mine too, though. So you have to share. I love her to death. She's awesome. And she it's amazing how for the longest time it was just you and her, wasn't it? Just after
Yep.
Your dad and everything. I'm assuming your dad passed, and then you ended up being with your mom and all that. How is it day to day with her? Do you sit there and think, okay, like, is your everyday planned? Like, do you have to have a plan with you?
No, well, every day there's routines
That you have to stick by?
that you don't have to stick by them, but when you get a routine down that works,
Mm-hmm.
it's just easier to go by that routine than to throw something else in the mix,
Yeah.
because you throw one thing in the mix and it could screw something else up, down the road.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so, in the morning, mom, from, well, from the time I was hurt, well, let me back up a little bit before I got in the accident. My senior year, up in Paradise, I had gotten my heart broke, and I wasn't doing good in school. I was flunking most of my classes.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew it was time that I needed to make a change. My dad was, working his fingers to the bone to keep food on the table and whatnot. And I was taking advantage of the situation and not doing things that I should have been doing. And so I moved down to Ord Bend to live with my mom
Mm-hmm.
and her husband, and going to moving. That was about halfway through my senior year, and starting school at Hamilton City, I knew everybody because I went to school there until my sixth grade or halfway through my sixth grade. And I always came down to Hamilton to run around.
So it was like old home week.
So, yeah, um, I was familiar with everybody for the most part. Um, and coming to a smaller school was a godsend for me. Um, I uh, I got more help with my schooling, um, and so my grades went from F's and D's to B's and A's.
Oh, wow.
Uh, and I got uh, interested in sports again. Um, and so I was living with mom and her husband, and then shortly after I graduated, my grandfather lived in a trailer in the back of the park, just behind where my mom and her husband. And so I moved in with my grandfather, and I was working for a cement company, and then I went from there and started working for one of the local farmers. Um,
What did you want to do? What was your career path whenever you, like, do you remember, like, you thought, I really want to do this, or I really want to do that?
at the time, I really hadn't thought that far, you know, that deep into it.
You're still young, still trying to find.
I was 17.
Yeah.
You know, I was too busy
Drinking and chasing tail.
drinking and chasing tail. Some of them that I caught, I probably shouldn't have. But
You should have threw him back like a fish.
yeah, yeah.
We all have those stories.
Those names shall remain
I was gonna say.
anonymous. So, yeah, we'll keep them out of the mix. But when the accident happened, mom, it was 24/7.
Yeah.
And she still worked at the high school. So when she was working, I had my sister helping take care of me. And when I first got home, a friend of mine that I went to school with in Paradise, he took care of me. And when I say take care of me, I don't know how detailed I should get in this because being a quadriplegic, when you're paralyzed, you lose function of everything. So I couldn't, excuse my French, but
Use it.
I couldn't piss on my own. I couldn't take a crap on my own. So there's various methods that people use to get those things done. And my buddy was doing those and putting me to bed and getting me up. Where we ran into problems was he liked to stay up till 11 midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and then sleep till 11 at noon. And this boy wasn't like I was awake at 7:30 and wanted to get up in my chair and get going, do something. And so we soon butted heads over that, and he stopped being my caregiver, and we remained friends, and we're still friends to this very day. and always will be. Um,
So you've kept everybody that you have.
Everybody that I had that was close to me before the accident remained that way after uh, the accident. Some of them I didn't get to see as often as I would have liked, uh, just because that's how life is.
Mm-hmm.
People get married, have kids, you got jobs to do. Um, so, but back to mom. Um, yeah, things got to be 24/7 with her. There was no time off, and uh, my grandfather helped. Uh, in in fact, uh, when my sister um, stopped uh, doing my caregiving, and my grandfather was doing it, mom was still secretary at the high school, and I had a workout machine uh, at the house, and my grandfather was over at his trailer, and so I had this stereo in my room with great big speakers, and I cranked up the music real loud and was rattling the windows and went in and started using my workout machine. And I guess I got carried away and my hand slipped off. Uh, my left hand slipped off the handle and I fell to my left and I went all the way out of the chair. And I landed on my shoulders, my head and my shoulders, and my legs were up over the top of me. Um, and I was between my gun safe and my chair. And um, no way to get a hold of anybody. And so what felt like, hours was probably 15, 20 minutes. I heard our neighbor pull into their driveway. And at this particular park, all the trailers were crammed in like sardines. So I started yelling for Mary, and she was probably all of about 5 foot tall and weighed, you know, 98 pounds soaking wet. Um, then I heard her trailer door close, and I thought she didn't hear me. So, by the grace of God, uh, she, when she'd been shopping and she'd left her milk sitting on top of her car, so she had to go back out to get her milk. And when she went back out to get her milk, she heard me yelling, and so she come running over. And like I said, she was maybe 5 foot, and she straightened me out, got me laid straight out on the bed or on the floor, and was going to try to pick me up by herself.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I said, no, 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 you can't do that. Why don't you go over and get Grandpa? And so she did. And when they got back, they put me back in the chair, and I proceeded not to try that anymore.
You weren't. That was the end of your workout career.
That was the end of my yes. Arnold Schwarzenegger, I was not going to be.
No, you weren't gonna do it.
No.
So you mentioned
So
you mentioned that the fact that you have people, you're very fortunate to have people surrounding around you. That's most people aren't that lucky, but you are, man. You really truly are. I think that's awesome.
yes, I am extremely blessed.
Mm-hmm.
And um, if there's a Mother of the Year
Hmm.
uh, award out there anywhere, um, the mother that I have should be nominated for that and probably win it
Mm-hmm.
every year,
Yep.
at least in my book.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because after she retired, and she's been retired, oh, I, I don't know, 20 something years, I want to say longer than that. Um, she has taken care of me.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad passed away in 94. And so um, I didn't I didn't have anything like I didn't qualify for Medi-Cal. Um, uh, so I didn't have anything like IHSS,
You didn't have any assistance.
any assistance, anybody that came that I got to work for me, I had to pay out of pocket,
Mm-hmm.
and money doesn't go very far. That's why it was so important that I had the friends and the family that I have, because, like I said, mom was 7 days a week, and she didn't get a dime, not a
Wow.
dime. Um, but I guess in lieu of that, we got to share a lot of things that probably some siblings and their parents probably don't get the time to do. Uh, we went a lot of places. Uh, I think we probably visited every Indian casino that there is.
I was gonna say you guys have a lot in common
Uh,
whenever it comes to the kaching, as my mom likes to call it.
yes.
Uh-huh.
And I think she inherited that from her father.
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather loved to go to Reno. Um, Mom always tells the story that uh, my grandfather and grandmother would, back in the day, they would drive over to Reno. And when they would get there, my grandfather would take a $5 bill and put it in the glove box to have gas money to get back.
Uh-huh.
Can you imagine
No.
$5?
That would get you all the way. No,
That would
absolutely not.
that
No.
would yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we and of course when you're together that much, there's times you're gonna butt heads and
Mm-hmm.
not see eye to eye. But
When it's 24/7, it doesn't matter. It could be a saint, and you're gonna look and go, "I hate you. I hate everything about you right now. I need to go to my corner. You need to go to your corner." And one day we'll, not right now, but give it a minute, and we'll
yeah,
work on it.
yeah. But there's never been a time where if I've needed her that she hasn't been there.
Exactly.
And I mean, not I'm probably gonna get slapped up alongside of the head when after she hears this, but she's 83 right now,
Mm-hmm.
and back in September broke her hip,
Mm-hmm.
and is on the road to recovery, but she's still having a lot of pain in her leg, but she still uh, comes in and does what she can uh, to help take care of me.
Mm-hmm.
Now I've got a niece that works for me, and another wonderful lady that is our neighbor that works for me. Um, and I now qualify for IHSS,
Mm-hmm.
so they get paid, and mom even gets paid. So finally, she's getting a little bit,
Getting
just
some help.
she's getting just a little bit of what she deserves. There's there's probably not enough money in this country to pay her for what she's done, you know. But at 54, she tells me, "You're still my baby,"
Uh-huh.
you know.
You always will be. It doesn't matter whether you could be 80 years old and she's still. So you also have another lovely woman in your life.
Yes.
Now, how did you meet? Her name is Carrie. How did you guys meet?
We met online. One of these chat channel things back in, I think it was 2001. And for the most part, we've seen each other now for 19 years. And for the most of that time, it's been a long distance relationship. She is from Atascadero, but most people probably won't know where that's at. So I'll just say Santa Barbara is where she grew up. So she's down in that area. And she stayed when we first started seeing each other. She would drive up here. Now that's an 8-hour drive one way.
Good Lord.
And she would drive up here once a month for a weekend. And the first time we met in person, she had driven over to Merced, and her brother and sister-in-law lived there. And she had a young son, Tyler, who was, I think, probably 2 at the time. And so they watched Tyler. And she drove up from Merced up to here to see me and go out to lunch on a Saturday. And that drive alone is probably 4 hours.
Holy shit. I don't even like to drive to CVS.
And yeah.
Ugh.
And she drove up here, and she's just a short little thing. And the van, I had a full-size van at the time, and it didn't have a lift in it. Just had some ramps that we'd have to pull out. People would push me up and down. And there was no way with her short legs that she was going to be able to do it. So Mom put me in the van, and I knew we couldn't go to a restaurant because we were going to have to get out at a restaurant. So being the little devil that I am, I told her, let's get something to eat from the deli, and we'll go out to the lake and find a spot to have something to eat out at the lake. And so we got some sandwiches and whatnot, and went out to the lake, and we drove around the back part of the lake. And as she's getting everything ready to eat, I thought I'd put her to the test, and I said, without the use of my fingers, there's no way that I can hold those sandwiches. So I'm going to, if you don't mind, need you to feed me. And she didn't skip a beat.
She didn't.
Nope. Didn't, so there was easy test number 1, And so we had some lunch and some dessert. I won't tell you what type of dessert we had. That shall remain.
That
in the
shall
vault.
remain. Yes.
Yeah, we'll keep that one in the vault. Never kiss and tell, I guess. On the way back to the house, I tell her that uh, I thought the date must have went bad because she tried to kill me. A deer jumped out in front of us coming back into town, and she had to slam on the brakes, and uh, my my wheelchair wasn't strapped down,
Oh shit.
and so uh, I kind of slid up between the driver's seat and the passenger seat, but all's well that ends well.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, we, you know, started. Uh, we were on the phone together probably 6, 7, sometimes 8 hours a day,
Mm-hmm.
talking back and forth. Uh, um,
But she's had no. It's a family member that is also in a wheelchair as well. Correct?
on her side of the family,
Yes.
no,
No.
no,
Okay.
um, no. She's had uh, enough of uh, accidents of her own
Oh yeah.
to um, uh, she's definitely accident prone to say the least.
That's what we think is endearing.
Yeah, you know, yeah. She almost she was riding a quad four-wheeler down in a riverbank, um, which I had asked her please not to go on, but
Mm-hmm.
she's a woman, got a mind of her own, is going to do what she wants
We
to
all
do.
do.
So, yeah, and it rolled over, and the pedal or the foot peg uh, tore a huge gash through the back of her leg, just above the knee.
Mm-hmm.
She's very, very lucky that they didn't have to amputate it. It was that bad.
Mm-hmm.
And it took a long time for that to heal. And it still gives her trouble to this day. And then she'd hear a few years ago, hurt her back on the job, and so that's later up. She's still able to get around and do things, but as everybody out there knows, when you get back problems, they usually cause other, you know,
It's the start of many things.
yes.
And
So-
whenever you need it for certain things, it takes a toll on you. It definitely. I live with it. I know what people have to go through, and I not only live with it, but I also am in direct contact with it constantly. So it's a never ending battle.
Yep.
But I think it's great. And so, what is one thing that you want people to take away from this? I mean, is there certain things where you sit there and think, the only thing I want people to know is don't park so close to my gosh damn van. Get the hell away from it, or whenever you see it, move out of the way, or
You know, something like that. Yeah, it irks you. But life's too damn short to, really get pissed off
pissed
about
off.
it.
Yeah.
Save the getting pissed off about, the big things. I mean, on a daily basis, if I'm out in public, I've got people who walk, cut me off, and I can't stop this chair on a dime, and so if they cut me off and I happen to bump into them, I say I'm sorry. That's the way I was raised, yes, thank you, please, that sort of thing.
You have
And-
manners.
And probably 60% of the time, nowadays anyhow, I get a look of, like, well, you piece of shit, you run into me, and uh, they don't think on the other terms of, well, maybe I should watch where I'm going, and
Get the hell out of my way. Yeah.
that sort of deal. And it seems to be getting worse. But as far as somebody taking away something from this, I guess there's always the old saying, don't judge a book by its cover. Yeah, I'm in a chair, but there's still a lot of things that I can do. It took how do I want to say this? It took a lot of things away from me, but over the years, I've learned to do some of those same things, just in a little bit different way. I told Carrie shortly after we first started getting serious that when it comes to me, she's going to find out that she needs to think outside the box. Literally. So she's been on some adventures that she didn't quite expect to come from, this simple old country boy, and she didn't complain. So
As long as there's no complaints, it don't matter.
That's right. Hey,
It don't matter how you get there, as long as you get there.
leave a tip on the nightstand.
Exactly. I think there's two types of people. There's those always the ones. My mom always says, there's the ones that, whenever things start happening, they usually pack up and they leave. And she says, and we weren't raised that way. We weren't. You either adapt or you adapt. You don't have a choice.
Yeah.
It's either this or it's going to happen. Some they load up and they go. Others, we don't retreat. We reload and we just keep going.
And everybody needs a break once in a while. But
Well, yeah, you need a break from yourself. Everybody does. Everybody needs a, I knew that it's not a secret. Everyone knows. I love you more than life. And what I love most about you is every time you come in here, you always ask how my husband is doing. You always have such empathy, never sympathy, but empathy for, his bad back or his arthritis or whatever. And you're always going, gosh, damn, that just sucks. That's just horrible. And I'm thinking, really? And I guess it is true. You could take all your problems and put them in a bucket. All of us could. And at the end of the day, we'd all be reaching back for our own. And you are the most giving and most kindest person. And I never see the chair. You're not identified as the chair. That is not you. I see you that I love it when you walk through that door and I can say anything filthy dirty to you and you take it and you run with it. You're quick. You're, and that's how you have to be.
Yeah.
But anybody, whether they're walking on two legs or they're rolling around on four wheels, it's just called being human. It's no different. It doesn't matter how you get there,
Nope. Everybody has got to take their own path.
Yep.
And try to enjoy it as best you can while you're on that path. Because nobody's guaranteed anything. And so there's no use sitting in a corner crying about it. Bitch all you want, but pull yourself up by your bootstraps eventually and get going, or the world's going to leave you behind.
Exactly. I completely agree. Well, is there anything else that you'd like to say that you didn't get a chance?
Oh, well, I'll tell you what. There's probably a lot of things that we could go through. But at the moment, my mouth's getting a little bit
I know.
dry.
I figured. We'll wrap this up.
So
I want to tell you,
I would love to come do this again.
this has been a blast, and I appreciate you, and I love you, and I am so thankful that I am blessed with people like you in my life. So
I truly, truly appreciate you having me come do this.
absolutely.
Now, I am a little disappointed because I thought the brochure, when I read it, said it was going to be naked.
Oh, I know,
But I guess
know.
the cold weather.
The cold weather, it would just get weird is
Yeah.
what would happen. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Next time, not on your first visit, always on the second one. That's
Okay.
always the best one.
All right. We'll do it when it's a little warmer.
There you go. All right, guys, this is it for us or No Conditions. Go ahead and like us on our Facebook page. You can also find us on YouTube. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. And episodes come out every Friday. So I'd like to thank my guest, Chris Meyer, for coming in. And I hope you guys have an awesome one. And I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Thanks so much.
Thank you.